Hi, everybody. This is Jean Humbrecht with Humbrecht Law, criminal and traffic defense attorney in Manassas, Virginia. Welcome to my weekly Wednesday local business spotlight. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Tom Osina from the Manassas City Council. So, Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to give everybody just a little background about yourself and the City Council while I share this video on different Facebook groups. And then I'll just start asking you questions.
All right. Sounds good. Well, first of all, Gene, thank you. And to those who are either watching it live or watching the recording, welcome as well here. It's a great chance to, chat. Gene, first of all, has been great about staying involved in activities in the city of Manassas. And so, congratulations first on becoming a homeowner right here in the city, which is
Thank
kind
you very much.
exciting. We always like that sort of thing. There's we believe a house or a rental for everybody's needs here as best we can, and that's one of the things I might just go into here, and that is. Uh, when I ran for council in 2020, one of the things I wanted to see discussed right at the highest level of the city um, matters was affordable housing. Now that word, those two words mean lots of different things along the way. I have discovered as we started working on this. Fortunately, I serve with five other city councilors and a mayor who are interested in this topic. And over the last 2.5 years, 21, 22, and half of 23, we've been steadily working on this. We didn't do a lot in the first year. We had to get up to speed and know a little bit. Second year, we did a little bit more. And this third year, clearly, we did a lot more. We have gotten to understand more. And in fact, at our last city council meeting, and city council, by the way, meets the second and fourth Mondays of every month, with the exception of August and the latter part of December. Those are recess times, unless there's a special need for a special meeting. And at last week's city council meeting, we had a presentation about some affordable housing zoning text amendments put together by the Planning Commission and the community development staff. This past Monday, we had a little bit more discussion about it at our work session. And next week, on I believe the 24th, we will actually close the public hearing on that matter. So we're looking for citizen input and then make a decision whether council wants to amend, adopt, or reject those zoning text amendments. But in there is probably the first really tangible way we are now talking about affordable housing, what it looks like, what's the definition. As I said at the very beginning, lots of definitions out there. We're now working on an established definition we're going to work with. And then from there, we will have in the zoning text amendment some ways that we might promote this. Now, the idea is not to have affordable housing all over the city. We believe that we want to keep neighborhoods the way they are, but there are opportunities, particularly in renovations or in new areas, such as the Manassas Avenue area, where there are great opportunities for maybe us to combine some affordable housing with whatever else might happen. I can't say that that's going to be the case, but I'm just saying that's an example for people to start thinking about along the way. So that is exciting because while it took time, and I know there have been advocates for affordable housing who have been somewhat frustrated by the pace of how this has been moving along in the city, we are getting there, and I'm happy to report we are going to make more progress because, as I said, I have fellow counselors who are interested in this topic and are working toward making it part of what we are. We know how expensive it is to live in the city, and if we're going to live up to the ideals of our comprehensive plan, where we have housing for as many people as possible, from just starting out to all the way to when you're a senior and maybe wanting to either age in place or be somewhere where you don't need as much house or rental space and so forth in that case. And that's our goal. Wonderful things about our comprehensive plan and some of the things we do in the city, they're aspirational, but they're only they're only as good as we work toward that, Gene. So we have to make sure that we are making those efforts. So for me, that's one of the more exciting things that I've been working on for the last 2.5 years. My term ends next year. We're elected for 4-year terms, just to remind people again how it works here. Every 2 years, we elect half of city council. We have a 6-member city council and then a mayor. So in 2020, we elected 3 city councilors. I was one of those, and then the mayor. And we're serving for 4 years. Our term expires December 2024. Meanwhile, in 2022, the other 3 city council positions were open, and those folks were elected, and they've been elected to a 4-year term, and their term will expire in 2026 on that case. Gets a little confusing because we're right next to the county, Prince William County, and they certainly have a Board of Supervisors race going on here. So a lot of action happening over there, but not here in the city of Manassas when it comes to city council. The other thing I probably, and anybody who's been following city councils, particularly of late, is that we received a bid when we put out a request for to see if there were any companies interested in providing commercial air service at the Manassas Regional Airport. Right now, our airport's called a general aviation airport. This is an airport where there are private planes come in and will either drop off people, or they use this as a base and move back and forth and move people around. The FBI has a location out there on their own hangar. And so we have done very well over the years to have a great business model under our airport director, Juan Rivera, and as a general aviation airport. And that airport has grown over time. A lot of people don't, unless you've been here in Manassas, it was way out in the fields, cow fields, if you want to call it that. And obviously, over time, we've seen not only the airport grow, if you've been out there for any of the airplane activities there, but we've also, people of subdivisions have been built around there. Their county has put some data centers there along the way. So, nonetheless, and we got a proposal from a company called Avports, P.L.L.C. And this is a company that in other locations comes in, and when given basically a franchise to work at an airport, will then go out and secure one or more airlines who will provide general air service from that airport to other locations and back. And so right now we got this proposal, and we had a public hearing last Monday on it. And this coming Monday, on the 24th of July, we will continue the public hearing and then close it. So folks still have an opportunity to come in person to speak. And then we will be making some decisions about moving forward here. We don't know what airlines they might be because, well, that's one of the things the company has to do, is if it gets the opportunity to do the franchise. And so we're looking at the beginning, probably approximately 3 flights a day, if this goes forward, commercial flights, where folks will be able to come there, use one or more airlines, and fly somewhere. My guess is that the locations, because everybody's always wants to know where you're flying to and what have you, will be places that are like hubs. That makes sense, because you get somewhere to a hub and then move on to your final destination. That's ideal, and or destination places there. And you have to think of your on your own. But if you pick Florida just as an example, I'm sure people can think of one or more destinations just in the state of Florida that might be ideal along the way here. I'm not sure that we will necessarily have it all the way out to the West Coast, but that's not for me to decide. That's for Avports to find out. And obviously, this is only going to work if obviously the service is used and the airlines obviously are getting people flying them. But of course, some of the concerns have been what kind of air traffic there would be when this got started. And as I say, we're looking at approximately 3 flights a day if all goes well. And that's going to be phase one. If this continues, though, we move into phase two. And this is a case where the FAA is called in and will do a very in-depth study of our airport to determine whether additional flights are warranted and if our airport meets those standards there. And there are lots and lots of things that are covered in this. I was amazed to see the list, and there's probably a list I'll be talking about next week on the 24th about the things the FAA does. Because we did have citizens who showed up last week who were rightly concerned about the noise, about the environmental impact there, about traffic, all very reasonable things to be looking at in that case. And I know that after hearing from people, I did my due diligence and started talking with our community development people, our traffic people, even our airport people to find out where we are on some of these things. And I think on the 24th, we'll hear some interesting stuff that will provide additional information for our citizens in that particular case there. So that's kind of the exciting news. It was hard to top the purchase of the Old Town Inn when that occurred way back when we made the announcement in I believe January or early February there. And then as things have progressed, we have now taken ownership of that particular block, and people are, all the it is not a hotel, a motel that's in operation, but that was really big news. Some people have been wondering what happened because you have these big announcements and then things happen behind the scenes along the way. In June, we had community discussions, not listening sessions, discussions where the community was asked to come in and in facilitated small groups to give their thoughts on what might go there. And it really gave those discussions they talked about what can't be done, what can be done, but they wanted to hear from the public as to what possibilities, recognizing that you are going to be in an existing area already. How do we enhance the economic development of that particular area? I will say at our work session on this past Monday, we saw the initial results, and council looked them over, asked a couple of questions along the way. Many citizens are saying, well, when are we going to make a decision? Well, we haven't made a decision. That's something we need to talk about here along the way. But from the community conversations, probably most people, if I can summarize in terms of what would go there, would be a hotel that would have mixed uses. And that, but I think recognizing that, believe it or not, there was a hotel that was built that was there in the turn of the last century, and that was a tall brick building because back then that's what you built. And then that was torn down and around in the 1960s, and a more what I call suburban, auto-oriented hotel was built, which is named the Old Town Inn there. And then, of course, we've seen things change now, that those aren't really what you find being built anymore here. We're back to taller buildings, but also taller buildings that are not just hotels anymore. And so that mixed use will fit in very nicely. Of course, all of this doesn't happen unless there are developers out there that are willing to do those kinds of projects there. So we are way at the very beginning of trying to determine appropriate uses and who might be interested in what will go there. So I don't think anyone should really expect that come the next month or next 2 months, they come back from summer vacation and all of a sudden a big decision will have been made in that particular case. But we also talked at that work session that the next steps are for the building to be demolished. And so there will be, that's going to get started, I believe, in August. They put that out to bid, and they're looking over the bids. Ideally, they'd like to get it done before Labor Day, simply because schools start. You got school buses. You have things pick up a little bit more, and so if we can get that done and have the building demolished and the debris taken away, so what does that mean for our residents? Whether you are in the city or you travel through there, you're going to have some traffic congestion. You just are. It there are two lanes on either side, Church and Center Street, for instance, there, and you got Battle and East Street on the sides, that kind of thing, which are somewhat narrow as well. So people just need to understand that. Guess what? If we once we start that, we need to get it done, and there will be single laning, perhaps. Maybe at times we're going to have to block and reroute people. And I understand that's an inconvenience there, but I hope everybody understands kind of the bigger picture of what's happening there. So stay tuned. Do pay attention. The city of Manassas does use its Facebook page to post a lot of traffic problems that come along, and that is a good way to know what's coming up here. Just like VDOT, when it's working on like Interstate 66, and they had to close lanes to put beams over the interstate to do roads overpasses there. This is the sort of thing. We're not going to have overpasses, but it is going to be challenging. And what I would ask, though, that our citizens continue to do is, we've got a lot of great businesses right in that area, and they're going to be impacted when we have to start doing that. And so I hope you'll continue to visit them, albeit you may have to park a block away or in the parking garage, or have to walk a little bit of a distance to get to them. But please remember that they're there, and they're still open, and they're going to not only appreciate your business, but we want to keep them going, because we don't want anyone to go out of business, and I don't think that will happen. But we got to make a conscious effort, just like we did during COVID, where we made a conscious effort to visit our businesses in Old Town. Same sort of thing here. That particular block, when you think about what's there, they're going to have a little problem there, and so we got to move ahead on that. Other exciting news, Gene. You asked me. I know you did. I could see that in your mind coming up. So on Saturday, July 29th, the Manassas Museum will be opening. We're having a ribbon cutting Friday, the day before, in the evening at 6 o'clock, and it's sort of like a soft opening. We only got the building about 6 weeks ago, meaning everything was done, and then the city, particularly the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department, got the permission to start moving in, and so what is going to be open for the public on Saturday is they'll be able to go in initially. We've returned Echoes, which is the museum gift shop. That will be in there, and that will be good to see what's going on. And if you look at the building head on, and you see particularly on the left-hand side, the large glass opening, it kind of comes out, and it's glass, and at night when it's going to be lit up, it'll look pretty interesting there. That'll be open, and they're going to have some exhibits there. Nothing dramatically new, but some stuff that we have for the public to look in. So you get to do some exploration. But the exhibit halls that are on the right hand side, I don't think they'll be open yet, because the museum staff has to start putting the stuff in. A lot of things were put in storage, and a lot of new stuff is coming along, and so we're going to be doing that. So the really big opening of the entire building is scheduled for the fall. Think October, maybe November, but just think what the first weekend in December, when we do the Christmas parade, and before that we have Santa visit, and all the lights and everything that we do right there on the Manassas lawn. That whole portico will be available for a lot of different things. So I think you'll see our lighting of our Christmas tree and so forth done a little bit differently, and we'll have a new backdrop to show, as we say, historic heart. But what is it? I always get this wrong. I shouldn't have gone down this. historic beat, something of that sort. I'm gonna. People are yelling it at me as I'm talking here, but we recognize our history, but we also have to be a city that's constantly changing and improving in appropriate ways. And I think this is one of those things uh, that will be happening there. Um, and so, as I said, please come out on the 29th. Make sure you get a chance to walk around and see inside. I think that will give you your first glimpse. That project moved remarkably fast, and one of the reasons it got done so quickly is we had a relatively warm winter, so the people in the construction business were able to actually work outside and get things done, and we're not. Sometimes when it gets too cold, you can't lay concrete, you can't do certain things outside.
Yeah.
But this winter was a little bit warmer than we usually have, so they got up to base there. Now, Gene, I know you've been going to city council meetings. You go to Old Town Business Association meetings. You network. You're a frequent visitor of First Fridays and so forth and so on. What are some of the things you like about Manassas?
I was actually just going to get into that when I had an opportunity. But first thing I wanted to say is it's historic heart modern beat. I looked it up.
Thank you for helping me out. Thank you. All right. That's what I meant to say. And I'm sure people will laugh at me going, you're on city council. You ought to know this sort of thing. And I apologize. I should.
Hey, you know what? If we get up early by this time of the day, we're very tired. So if you're an early riser like me, that happens to me all the time. So yeah, I do want to mention a few things about Manassas City because I don't know, who's watching this live stream now or who's going to be watching the recording later, or even if you live in Manassas and don't know, because I have been in the area for a long time, but I did not know about First Friday for the longest time until I was working here all the time in Manassas, which was only 5 or 6 years ago. That most of my business has been here and remained here. Now, a lot of towns do First Fridays, and if you've ever heard of it before, another town has done it. It's similar, and I think it's a lot of fun when it's warm outside. There are bands. There are sometimes a few bands. There's a band at Sinistral. There's a band on Battle Street. Sometimes there's a band over at CJ Finn's, and I love live music, and I love just being able to sit outdoors when it's nice outside and enjoy hanging out with people, from work. You see other people. Some people you only see, around on First Friday or when you're, walking around Old Town Manassas. So I really do love First Friday. It's a great opportunity for people to have entertainment, go out, relax at the end of a long week. But then also they're able to check out the different shops and stores and restaurants that are around Manassas. And I know a lot of the times there are themes. Oh, I should have looked this up. But a lot of the First Fridays they'll have a theme. Like I think January it's a Super Bowl type of a thing where different shops have soups. Don't quote me or hold me to this. But then Christmas, that's the weekend. I believe the weekend of the Christmas parade. And then as Tom said, Santa is there, and that's always a lot of fun. They do the Christmas tree lighting. But another thing that I like that Manassas City does, going off of the Christmas parade, they have a Veterans Day parade and they also have a St. Patrick's Day parade. So there are always a lot of things to do. And the Harris Pavilion, I think on Tuesdays, there's live acoustic music, at least when it's warm outside. On Saturdays, they have music there. They have the farmers market there on Thursday mornings, and then the weekly farmers market on Saturday mornings, which my new home is walking distance, so there's no excuse for me to not walk to the farmers market.
And get fresh vegetables, right?
Well, I tend to go more for the cookies and muffins, but vegetables are there too. But there's everything. There are food trucks. There's a sausage stand. I wish I remember the name, but the guy who owns that makes really good like breakfast sausage sandwiches. Yeah. There are cookies and pies and cakes and bread and vegetables and fruit and honey and olive oil, and I mean there's just all sorts of different things that you can get at the farmers market. And then I also run into people that I see at the farmers. I run into people everywhere. But I mean, I could keep going. I mean, there's so much about Manassas. I love that I live so close to so much. I'm near the museum. I'm right near Old Town. if anybody doesn't know the farmers market, it's just a couple blocks away from the garage that's in Old Town, the garage that Tom was mentioning.
Right.
And there are so many different places, places to shop, places to eat. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but I've just added so many events, right? Another thing. So on Saturdays, I shouldn't even be saying all this. I'm not in city council, but I'm now advertising for Manassas.
You're doing a great job, though.
But a lot of Saturdays, more so obviously when it's warm outside, there are different festivals. Like there was a Puerto Rican festival, which I unfortunately had to miss. I think I was out of town. There's a Viking festival. There's a railway festival. There's all sorts of different themed festivals on Saturdays, and maybe even Sundays, but Saturdays for sure. There's always just so much to do. And if you anybody with essentially any interest can find something that they like to do in the city of Manassas. And they also send out text alerts about events that are coming up, and the Facebook page has events. And Michelle Davis Younger, the mayor, she does her own events. I know that coming up soon, she has Midday with the Mayor. She's going to be just inviting people to come join her at Harris Pavilion, I believe, at noon on a few Fridays starting in August and going into September. And it's just an opportunity to informally chat with the mayor about, anything that you want. So it's also really cool that our mayor does things like that. She makes herself very accessible. I mean, that's not something that a lot of cities and towns, have available. So I mean, there's so much for people to take advantage of. And the city council meetings, the second and fourth Monday of the month, currently at Jenny Dean Elementary School, because I think the city hall is going under renovation still. Is that correct, Tom?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And actually, this is probably a good segue. Why don't you, and I do attend when I can the city council meetings, but why don't you tell everybody who's watching or listening, what exactly goes on at a city council meeting and who can attend?
Well, that's very good. So first of all, Jean, you did a great job. You clearly have been taking advantage of many of the things Manassas does. Some people don't recognize it. Just before I get to your last question is, farmers market is actually a business incubator. One of the things we work on very hard in the city is to make connections and not be in silos. We recognize that, for instance, we want the city to be, if we're going to do all of these activities, what can we do to make the city more walkable or bike friendly, so people will take advantage of those kinds of things, and not always dependent on their cars, for instance. And you see that throughout the city, where our parks are scattered around, with our walking trails that go on, with our dog park that we have, on things like that. But going back to the fact, several of the businesses that are now in Old Town started out at the farmers market. And that goes to show you that they had the concept, but they weren't ready for brick and mortar yet. And so coming to that farmers market every Saturday, and maybe even on a Thursday there, they actually developed clientele. They were able to work on their business model and do all the things they needed to get to the point where the next step was to have a storefront. And not necessarily in Old Town as well, but I'm just showing you that connection. And likewise, on that same matter, we have what is called 1 million cups. It's called official name is 1 million cups Prince William, but it meets every Wednesday from 9 to 10. Show up early, you get a cup of coffee, and it takes place at Centrifuge, which is at the corner of Battle and Center Street, right across from Popcorn Monkey on one corner and the Man Cave on another. And I go to that often because it's great to see the folks that show up. Approximately 40 people are there. That's how much it's grown, especially when you think of COVID wasn't that long ago and they were meeting virtually. But what takes place there is it's designed for entrepreneurs, not only for networking. And of course, that sometimes gets overused, but they have a program where a business person who's got a challenge, a question, wants help gets the floor and presents what's going on in his or her business, and then there's a robust discussion of, have you thought about doing this? Why do you do it this way? I mean, they kind of tear apart the problem, and there's lots of suggestions of how to put it back together here. And that is another place where businesses get started uh, along the way. And it's not just limited to folks in Manassas, even though it is in Manassas. We have folks from Prince William and Manassas Park who participate. But that centrifuge space is a joint meeting space. City of Manassas pays a portion of the operating costs, because we believe we need that sort of place for that kind of purpose along the way here. And so those are two things in particular when you want to talk again, being serious about building our economic base. We love our residential people, but to be quite honest, it's the revenue we get from our businesses that really make the difference here in our city. And we're very blessed to have uh, uh, lots of different businesses, your traditional retail and then commercial, and we have office space along the way. But everyone hears about Micron and Lockheed and BAE. But this earlier this week, we council was able to participate in a ribbon cutting for a company called Rapid Flight. It's on Center Street, right adjacent to where Southern States is, south of town. And Governor Youngkin attended. This adds to our technology sector here. And this is a company that chose to locate right here in Manassas. So we're excited. 100 plus jobs already, counting on more. And you can just imagine what the payroll is. And that gives people a lot of spending money to put in to the local economy. And that's all good for those of us who live in the city, like Gene and I, and many of you who are watching, because our residential real estate taxes, and our property taxes only pay so much here. And anytime we can get money from other places, business, commercial taxes, that's actually where we need to be doing those kinds of things there. So you asked the question, what's a city council meeting like in terms of what goes on? Right now, we're meeting at Jenny Dean Elementary School in the auditorium. You just go in the front entrance and walk short distance and turn right, and there's the big auditorium. Jenny Dean is Elementary is right there where Prince William Street meets Wellington, and there's the park there with Jenny Dean statue and what have you there. Our meetings start at 5:30, and generally we follow the same format, even though the topics may change. We always first meet. We have Pledge of Allegiance, roll call, Pledge of Allegiance. Then if we have special presentations like proclamations or fire service or the police are having folks who are graduating or getting promoted or receiving valor awards here, we spend time doing that. Proclamations, it can be all sorts of different things that come along the way here. We just had one on, for instance, the African American Festival is taking place, I believe, the first Saturday of August in the parking lot of Met School, and we issued a proclamation for that in July, since we're not meeting in August. So some of them are topical like that. We do one for the St. Patrick's Day parade. We do things of that sort of along the way, and some recognize people who have done outstanding work, or we want to be sure that their contributions to the city. After that, we have council time, and this is where each councilor has the option of sharing things that they've been doing, but more importantly, highlighting where events coming up, or basically some information they want to be sure the public hears about, because there's lots of things that go on that we have that don't always get a lot of publicity. We have a health district. We're in the Prince William Health District, and there are a lot of things that they do, and we want to make sure people know about vaccinations, as a for instance, that are available usually and at no charge there. And they have their mobile units coming around right here to Manassas or Manassas Park. So we'll mention that. We mention other things along the way. Mayor also participates, and we get a kind of a summary of what she has been doing, as well as upcoming things. And then the city manager reports. City manager is very good at really getting into not only if we've missed any of those activities, but also talking about things that citizens might want to hear about. What's a good example? Well, we've been having these power outages lately. Some for a longer period of time, almost an hour. Some have been these I call them blinks that have occurred, but they have really been upsetting to people, and rightly so. This is not what we want to do when we run our own, our electric department here. And so we get updates from the city manager as to what's going on in that area. And so that's important to hear. And then we get into our consent agenda, things that are we have all agreed to vote for, and there's no discussion. And then some. Then we get into either ordinances or presentations from departments that have things to share with us in that regard. And I'll stop there because I'm starting to lose my voice, Gene. So unusual for a politician, huh?
Oh, I won't comment on that.
Yeah, I know.
But you already shared so much information. I guess one specific question I have, and then maybe we can. Well, I'll come back to you if there's anything else you want to share before we wrap up. You were talking about the airport. What is the projected date or year that, if everything goes according to plan, that flights will start to become available?
Very good. Well, you know, if City Council accepts the proposal we have from Avports, let's say by the end of July, then Avports would we obviously be people, and then they'd be moving forward here, and most likely within the next 12 to 18 months, we would see some activity in terms of commercial air service. Could be faster, could take a little bit longer. Again, this is where Avport is now going to have to be doing the work, the serious work of reaching out to airlines, showing them what's available, figuring out what models work, destinations, things of that board here in that regard, and working those things. So I think folks, we're not going to suddenly walk out by Christmas time and have commercial air service, probably, but if they you never say never. There may be an airline or more that just thinks they're ready to go when they hear about this along the way here. So people should be thinking 12 to 18 months along the way, and that's how we'll start. It doesn't require any changes to the current terminal. So the terminal and the layout, if anyone's been out there in terms of parking, is the way things are. It's phase two when we really gear up and could grow the number of air flights that, as I mentioned, the FAA comes in and does a serious study of all the things I mentioned before. And in that case, Avports will then pay for the expansion of our terminal. So it'll be bigger. We'll also add more parking, which they'll pay for in that particular case, because now the model's been demonstrated. It is feasible and economically profitable for the airlines to come in and offer air service, because we have people who are coming to our airport to actually fly out to those destinations, and we'll probably see more destinations added as well because of that. And so a number has been mentioned that in that phase two, when that actually would take place, it will be as large as 30 flights a day. But again, that's an estimate at this point. We'll have to see. And in the phase one with flights coming along, we'll have to see how soon that happens along the way. So again, it's a work in progress. It's sort of like what I was talking about with the Old Town Inn. we got to do certain steps to prep the land and what have you. But then in the meantime, we'll certainly be having discussions with possible interested parties who might want to develop the land, hear what they have to say, see if it meets with what we've heard from the public and what we're looking at along the way. It may take a while, and then again, the right project at the right size and combination of mixed use might come along just like that, and suddenly we're moving ahead. That would be
Mhm.
the perfect world, but again, we can't tell the future at this particular point. So from council standpoint, we want to do this right. We have Old Town Inn, have the airport. We want to do these things right, and if we move ahead with the airport, we want to make sure we've done our due diligence, and more importantly, we do it right, because we don't want to do something and then we find it just flops because we were too hasty, for instance, or we didn't look into certain things along the way here. And those are kind of the important things to keep in mind here. And then lastly, you mentioned about uh, First Fridays. You're right. The one on August, I believe, Friday, August the 4th. They're calling it the days of summer, and
Mm.
I think you're invited to activities with the pooches and so forth. This has been done before, but I highly recommend. Everybody knows how hot it is outside. I don't like being outside at times, and if I am for any length of time, I do want to get it in where it's cool and so forth. And your dog is no different. So if you bring your dog, please bring water, bring cold water, bowl,
Mhm.
and keep in mind how hot the sidewalks and so forth are. Bring a blanket they can lie down on. Just treat them like you do at home. But keep in mind that they're not going to want to stay out all night long either here. So if you plan on doing that and you bring your dog, bring them, take them home where they can stay in front of the the air conditioning if they can, and then you come on back and have a good time. Because First Friday goes on for a while, so it's not like you'll miss it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Um,
All right, Tom. Well, before we go, is there anything else that you want to add to mention about City Council or any events coming up or anything else we didn't touch on?
Well, I will say this. Sometimes I hear from folks, a person or persons who say, I city council doesn't listen to me.
Mm.
And I always wonder about that, because if the definition of listening means agreeing or acting the way a person wants you to do, well, that happens. And when I was a private citizen, and I have lived here in Manassas since 2000, so this is my 23rd year. There are times I have written to council, talked to councilors, showed up in council meetings during public comment time, which is at the end of the meeting, and uh, they haven't done what I wanted them to do or thought they should do, or they did things they didn't want. But if they're saying, if I want to assure people that we get all these emails and we get phone calls and we get talked to um, when we're out and about, whether it's a First Friday, at the grocery store. I can be all sorts of places, and I like all of the residents here. I go and shop at lots of different places, and I there are times I'm shopping at a place outside of Manassas, and I run across people from Manassas, and they want to talk about something here, and so everybody on council listens, hears, and gets this information here. And so I want to assure people that we want you to speak up. In fact, it does us no good to be operating in a vacuum and not hear from people. So when again, if you hear from people that say we don't listen, listening means yes, I'm hearing what you have to say, and sometimes I act upon it, and it makes me think of additional things, or I ask questions in that regard. I would ask everybody, if you got pencil and paper, the quickest way you can write an email to everybody on city council so it goes to everybody is mayor and council, all one word, mayor and council at manassasva.gov. So that's mayor and council manassasva.gov. And, if you like something, send us that too. It's not always the squeaky wheels. Sometimes it's nice to hear that what we've done or are thinking about doing is something that you agree with. But please avail yourself of all those opportunities to speak to us. You can find our phone numbers on the utility bill that you get. It's on the back page, on the lower end of the back page, our cell phone numbers to reach us. And you could also talk to us if you come early to a city council meeting before 5:30. Many of us are there, and I'll use myself as an example. I try to mingle with people who have shown up in the auditorium ahead of time. So another great way to talk or say, I'd like a little bit more time after the meeting's over, or set up a date. I think our council is very accessible, so keep that in mind. But please, listening is not necessarily doing exactly what you want, because I know my counselors listen to me, but they don't always do what I hope that they would do when it comes down to a vote. And that doesn't mean that they didn't give me due consideration. And I want our citizens and our residents to know that that's the same with the mayor and the 6 members of council. That's how I'd like to end this, and I hope people will take that to heart. Thanks, Gene.
Okay, well, thank you, Tom, so much for your time and for all of that information. And I did type the email address here in the comments. So if anybody who's watching this now or later wants to send an email, that address is right there, accessible to you. So Tom, once I actually end the broadcast, you and I can remain here for a minute and chat if we need to. But otherwise, thank you so much. And everybody remember, the Manassas City Council meets the second and fourth Mondays of the month, except for August and the end of December.
Right.
And it's a great opportunity for everybody who works or lives or in the city or likes the city to find out about what's going on and to actually interact with city council members. And they're currently meeting at Jenny Dean Elementary School. I go to the meetings when I can. Can't make every week, but I do try to, because they are very informative. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking. Tom, thank you so much again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you at something soon in Manassas.
We will indeed. There's so much coming up. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching all of this too. Thank you,
Bye.
Gene.
Thank you.